Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to present to you our research on neighborhood ecological models of alcohol outlet density and male-to-female domestic violence. In this study, we examine the role alcohol outlets play in rates of domestic violence across Milwaukee. Of course, all alcohol outlets are not uniform. It is important to discern the differential effects between off-premise outlets, such as packaged liquor stores, and on-premise outlets, like taverns or restaurants providing alcoholic beverages. While there is a great deal of literature concerning the influence of alcohol outlets on domestic violence, previous research has not considered the effect of alcohol outlets in surrounding areas. As domestic violence is potentially impacted by surrounding block groups, our study accounts for the role the neighbors of a block group may have on domestic violence. Domestic violence is a pressing social and public health issue in the United States. The prevalence of domestic violence is staggering. Between 25 to 54% of women will experience physical aggression from an intimate male partner in her lifetime. More than 1 in 3 women in the US have experienced rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. The effects of domestic violence are harmful and long lasting. Victims of domestic violence are likely to report poor health, depression, and to develop chronic health conditions. Women who experience domestic violence are more likely to suffer from a variety of negative health outcomes, such as an increased risk of physical injuries and adaptation of unhealthy coping behaviors. The costs of domestic violence are not limited to negative health outcomes. The economic burden of domestic violence due to medical costs and lost productivity totals nearly $6 billion annually. While men and women perpetrate domestic violence at similar rates, violence against women is more severe. Male to female partner violence is likelier to be repeated and has greater odds of resulting in injury and death than violence perpetrated by women. The greatest threat domestic violence poses to women is homicide, and in Milwaukee, there is no exception. In one of the most violent cities in the United States, greater than 12% of homicides are a result of domestic violence. The findings of prior literature imply a positive relationship between neighborhood characteristics such as concentrated disadvantage and assault of domestic violence. Similarly, a large body of evidence suggests a positive relationship between alcohol outlet density and domestic violence, with off-premise outlets providing a stronger effect. One longitudinal study found alcohol outlet density was significantly associated with rates of domestic violence over time, with effects being particularly large for packaged liquor outlets. Between 25 and 50% of domestic violence incidents involved alcohol. In one prior ecological analysis of Sacramento, the authors found that each additional off-premise outlet in a small geographic area was associated with a 4% increase in domestic violence-related police calls and a 3% increase in domestic violence-related crime reports. We expect both types of outlets to be positively associated with domestic violence. We expect alcohol outlets and surrounding block groups to act differently. This is in part due to the way each impacts alcohol consumption. Residents of a block group may travel outside the boundaries to surrounding block groups for work, school, or any number of activities, and stop at an off-premise outlet prior to returning home. They could proceed to drink at their residence with no barrier to limit consumption or guardians to intervene during an assault. A resident of a block group traveling to an on-premise outlet in a neighboring block group would be less likely to assault their partner at the establishment, would be in the presence of bystanders who might intervene, and might be refused service before getting intoxicated to the point violence occurs. The barriers to domestic violence are greater at these on-premise outlets than their off-premise counterparts, so we expect only surrounding off-premise outlets to contribute to domestic assault. The research site for the study is Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the units of analysis are census block groups within the city. Census block groups are small areas which generally have a population size between 600 and 3,000 people and have been used as a proxy for neighborhoods in criminological literature. Crime data were obtained from the Milwaukee Police Department, and the alcohol license data were obtained from the city of Milwaukee. Domestic violence density and alcohol outlet density were calculated per square mile. To control for neighborhood characteristics that may be related to domestic violence, American Community Survey data were queried to obtain data such as concentrated disadvantage, lack of healthcare coverage, and total population. We used Esri's ArcGIS Pro to clean, geocode, and manage data, Geoda software to create spatial lag measures for each variable, and Geoda Space software to estimate models using spatially lagged maximum likelihood models. Domestic violence is not evenly distributed across Milwaukee. It is concentrated in two particular areas of the city, as demonstrated by Figure 1. Off-premise alcohol outlets are not uniformly distributed either. Figure 2 shows high densities of off-premise outlets located in two loose clusters in central areas of the city, while Figure 3 displays concentrated disadvantage primarily located in central and northern Milwaukee. Table 1 presents descriptive statistics of the variables used in our analysis. The average density of domestic violence assaults is 93 per square mile, with rates ranging from a minimum of 0 to a maximum of 710. The difference in prevalence between off-premise and on-premise outlets can also be observed. There is an average of nearly 6 off-premise outlets per square mile, ranging from 0 to 66, while there are roughly 15 on-premise outlets per square mile. These span from a minimum of 0 to a maximum of 307. Table 2 displays three models that do not incorporate lagged variables. Model 1 examines the relationship between on and off-premise outlet density on domestic violence, net of control variables. Model 2 examines the relationship between on-premise density alone, while Model 3 examines only off-premise density. Neither total outlet density nor on-premise density are significantly related to domestic violence, while off-premise outlet density displays a positive association. Table 3 displays three models that incorporate lagged variables. Model 4 examines the relationship between domestic violence and total outlet density, as well as lagged total outlet density, net of control and lagged control variables. Model 5 examines the relationship between on-premise and lagged on-premise density. Model 6 examines off-premise and lagged off-premise density. As can be seen in Model 6, lagged off-premise density is positively associated with domestic violence. This is the only lagged variable for alcohol outlets that is positively associated with domestic violence. Figures 4 and 5 represent the significant lagged variables. Figure 4 shows two primary groupings of areas where block groups are surrounded by a large number of off-premise alcohol outlets. Figure 5 shows a large cluster in northern Milwaukee where block groups are surrounded by very high levels of concentrated disadvantage. There are mixed results for our hypotheses. Domestic violence rates are positively associated with concentrated disadvantage, and the effects of concentrated disadvantage are not limited to the confines of a block group. Lagged concentrated disadvantage was highly significant across all models and demonstrated a strong positive relationship. Both off-premise outlet density and off-premise outlets in neighboring block groups are positively associated with domestic violence. On-premise outlets do not show an association. There were several limitations to our study. Due to the cross-sectional nature, we are only able to infer associations, not causation. Also, our study was unable to measure whether alcohol use and domestic violence co-occurred or happened in separate instances. Just as we are unable to determine the co-occurrence of alcohol use and violence, the true extent of domestic violence is obscured due to it being a crime that occurs behind closed doors. Another limitation is the inability to determine the severity of each assault. Our study did not distinguish between simple assault and more extreme forms of violence, such as choking or forced sex. This presents an opportunity for future research wherein alcohol outlet density is considered for different manifestations of domestic violence. Further research should be conducted on the intersection of alcohol outlet density and the rise in domestic violence during the COVID-19 pandemic. Restriction of access to on-premise outlets in conjunction with extremely limited guardianship likely led to an increase in the role off-premise outlets play in contributing to domestic violence. Thank you for watching this presentation.